Good morning, Jackie. It's bright and early over in Aspen, and I know it's the afternoon in Delhi now. So we thank everybody who's tuning in from Delhi Climate Innovation Week. We hope you're having a good week. It's really exciting. Just looking at the calendar, it's giving me a little bit of FOMO, wishing I was there with you all. But we have this really exciting virtual event. Um, an info session on a brand new prize called the Climate Curve Prize Methane that our organization, Climate Curve, is launching together with the Global Methane Hub. Um, and it's a prize that's pretty fast paced. Applications, we'll go over this, but applications are open until April 17th or until we reach 500. So you're definitely getting in at the ground level here with this info session to learn more about the prize and how you can apply. It's the first year ever that we're doing this, and it's the first ever global prize focused on food, agriculture, and waste sector emissions of methane around the world. So we're really excited to give you a bit more information about this prize today. We'll do that first, and then I'll ask Jackie some more questions to dig deeper into Climate Curve, what we do, the prize, um, and sort of its origin story, and the hope for the prize and what it will achieve. And then we'll open up the floor to Q&A through the chat. So as you hear my presentation and as you hear the conversation with Jackie, feel free to add your questions into the chat, and then we'll take Q&A from the questions that are in the chat at the end of the session. So without further ado, let me give you a bit more information about the Climate Curve Prize Methane. First of all, methane innovation is that missing piece, or one of the major missing pieces that can speed or slow our climate action. Methane is a highly potent greenhouse gas. It's more than 80 times more impactful than CO2. And it's been responsible for 45% of global temperature rise since the Industrial Revolution. And the food system plays a big part of this, accounting for an estimated 60% of global anthropogenic methane emissions. So that is the area of work that we're hoping to really target with this prize. Climate Curve does have another prize called the Keeling Curve Prize that we've run for many years, and you can see more about that on our website. This is the first prize where we're digging deeper into one area of emissions mitigation. And another reason that we're focusing on food, ag, and waste is that there's a huge gap in financing that's going to these solutions. And at the same time, working on reducing methane emissions, mitigating methane emissions, avoiding them, is estimated to bring about 12 times its cost and benefits. And this area is so exciting to work in because it also has enormous benefits for health, for livelihoods. A lot of the solutions that we hope to see will also have benefits for farmers, for communities, for urban areas. And that's really exciting in terms of the value. It's really about transforming our world to make our lives better, right? Through developing a new world with reduced and really avoided methane emissions. So that's the vision behind the prize. I hope a lot of you already tuning in are working on this issue, or methane experts, so I might be preaching to the choir here a little bit. So I'll get into some of the details of the prize itself. I think we all can understand some of the importance. So what sets this prize apart? So first of all, it was launched just this week. It was launched on Monday. So you're getting in at the ground level here, learning more about the prize. It's a first of its kind global prize for methane emissions for avoiding methane emissions in the food and waste sectors. Um, we at Climate Curve, we believe in transparent application-based processes. So you'll see there's a call for applications, and anyone who has an active project working on this issue that has a rigorous scientific-based process or can estimate their emissions impact is welcome to apply. We'll get into the eligibility criteria a bit more, but you can see already on our website, climatecurve.org, the way to apply for this prize. We provide a strong network of global partners and support for applicants, and anyone who applies to the prize can opt in to something called the Climate Conduit, which you can also see on our website. And we are often a prize that is a recommender for other prizes that might be nomination based and that type of thing. So it's really about getting a foot in the door as well to the whole prize ecosystem. And prizes in general, as a grants you get for a project idea that you might have, and they come with very specific things you need to report back to grants. With prize-based funding, it really is this tailored trust-based funding. A lot of the evaluation comes up front, and once the winners are given their awards, there's a lot of trust placed on them, and in terms of how to best use those funds to accelerate their impact. And we really are focused on building sustainable communities and long-term impact, and meeting applicants and awardees where they're at in terms of what their needs are going forward to make their project flourish. I mentioned a bit about this, but why a focus on agriculture and waste? We really feel this is a part of the methane puzzle that really needs focus right now. There is investment going into oil and gas methane and how to avoid that. We really want to see what solutions there are in the food, ag, and waste system. And I'll give you some examples of that, of how we define our categories and examples of the types of solutions that we might see come out of this prize. I'll introduce some of the faces of the prize. When we run a prize at Climate Curve, we have an advisory council that is very influential in the design and dissemination, getting the word out about the prize. And then we have, once applications are submitted, they go to an analyst team that takes the applications down to the finalists. In this case, there will be 16 finalists that go on to the judges panel. So those are sort of three circles of experts that work on the prize. And for this prize, these are some of the advisory council members that you'll also see on our website, who have been we've had some fascinating conversations with them over the months leading up to the launch. Next, this is a lot of text, and you'll find it on our website. But these are the categories of the prize. So I mentioned we have 16 finalists. Those will be in 4 categories, and then we'll have 8 winners across the 4 categories. So the first category we have is mitigation. Those are projects that really are avoiding methane emissions. They're developing, advancing, and implementing solutions, whether those be technological, genetic, nature, process-based strategies for avoiding methane gas release. And the projects that will do best in this category are projects that are really innovating above and beyond the business as usual, strategies. So cutting edge solutions that really may be new to the analysts and the judges that are reviewing these applications. We expect to be surprised by some of these solutions in this category in terms of mitigation. And then social and culture, we also have 2 categories: social and cultural pathways and finance, that are very important, because as we know, a lot of the challenge with climate action is that we know some of the technical solutions that we need, but they are not getting rolled out to disrupt business as usual, right? And so the social and cultural pathways category and finance category really works on this. How do we get people to adopt this? How do we make these solutions work in our world as it is today, right? How do we transform the world with these solutions? So the social and cultural pathways category, that will have projects that change the way people consider, understand, and act on methane emissions. How do we socially, culturally develop a reduced methane emissions world? Um, how do we close those gaps in human behavior and implementation? This might influence consumption, awareness, communication, mobilization, activism, policy, cultural norms. Um, and we're hoping to be surprised by some of the creative ways we get the word out about that. We also have the finance category that's doing something analogous in the finance space. So how do we make the economics work, the financial mechanisms work? We've heard a lot in our conversations that, sure, there are a lot of exciting technical solutions out there, technological solutions, but sometimes they just don't work for farmers or waste management professionals. They're too expensive, or perceived as to be too expensive. So how do we make the financing work? That's the finance category. And then we have an MRV category: monitoring, reporting, and evaluation. We've seen a lot of exciting movement in recent years in monitoring methane emissions. What are we doing to better track that, and not just understand where methane emissions are occurring, but also have that translate back into an impact on the emissions themselves? What are those solutions that are doing a better job of monitoring, reporting, and verifying methane emissions mitigation, that are then having an actual impact back on emissions, because of the way they're better able to promote transparency, accountability, and trust in these initiatives? So those are our 4 category definitions. All of this information is on our website, so you'll be able to take a look at that. Then you can see some examples of solutions by category. And I don't want to get too prescriptive with this. I'm just putting this up here because we are fully aware that we may not have some of the most exciting solutions on this slide, right? These are just examples of the types of things that might fit into different categories to help you get an idea of what box you might check on the application in terms of the category that your solution might fit into. But by no means this is an exhaustive list, right? I'll move on to our timeline. First of all, you can find all of this information on our website, climatecurve.org. There should be a pop-up loud and proud that tells you, directs you to the methane, the Climate Curve Prize methane. From this Monday to April 17th, or until we get 500 eligible submissions, applications will be open around the world. And then from April 17th, or the close of the submissions portal, onward to July 2nd, we will have our solutions evaluated by our analyst team. And that team, as I mentioned, is the team that gets the hundreds of applications down to the 16 finalists that will be passed on to the judges. We'll have a finalist announcement on July 2nd. It'll be on our social media. It'll also be in person in Aspen, I believe. And then from July through August of this year, we will have our committee of judges take those 16 finalists down to the 8 winners for this year. And then we'll recognize those winners at New York Climate Week in September. Each of the winners will be awarded $25,000 US dollars for them to scale and succeed. And as you can see from this timeline, it's a pretty fast process. I've been in situations where, you draft something for a grant and then it takes months to do that. And then you apply and then it takes, 6 months, a year or more to hear back about certain grants. This is a very fast, pretty fast process. April 17th is the deadline. By September, we will have winners announced. And lastly, I will get into just some of the common FAQs, the nuts and bolts of questions that we get while people apply. So first of all, when is the deadline? This is a bit confusing sometimes related to other deadlines that you might see out there. So April 17th of this year, and you can see the specific time zone and everything, is the deadline. However, we have a policy that when we reach 500 eligible submissions, applications that have filled out all the answers and have made their best attempt to quantify their emissions impact, and et cetera, that are eligible applications, we will close the portal. So this means for applicants, don't wait. Don't wait. I'm someone who puts the deadline, on the date it is in the calendar, but it's too tempting to procrastinate. Don't procrastinate on this. Get your application in. And that time zone should allow a lot of different time zones to, have the whole day of April 17th to get it in. But we do have that cap, and it could close earlier. What do I get if I win? So I mentioned the 8 winners will get 25,000 US dollars each in prize funding. But beyond funding, I mentioned the conduit network that we have that connects not only all winners, but also our finalists, our applicants that opt in to a global network of climate leaders and supporters. And we really do look at this conduit database in order to suggest folks for speaking engagements, for other prizes in their nomination processes, for matchmaking, with potential donors that might have different specifications than we have, right? More specific ones. Maybe they're focused on a geography or on a specific theme or subset. So in that sense, it's a large support system. I do also want to call out a specific way we support winners and finalists, which is through our Constellations Fellows program. And we have more information about that on our website. And those are young people, undergraduate students, master's, even PhD students that are looking for opportunities to get involved in the climate movement around the world. And we have an opportunity for organizations to receive support from youth and fellows working on their solutions. And we always have a very competitive process. Thousands of applications for dozens of slots each semester, each part of the year. So it's a really exciting way to accelerate impact. You can see more about that on our website. Okay, lastly, who can apply? So we say that the prize is open worldwide, except for those countries with specific sanctions where we actually cannot legally fund being based in the United States. It also, applications, we ask that you submit them in English. There are a lot of tools online you can use to translate your application. And if there are videos, the videos can be in another language with English subtitles or something like that. But that is because we want to make sure we're capturing the materials we receive are in your voice, or that you supervise those translations rather than us doing the guessing work on your application. Projects must be active projects. This isn't a prize that gives out funding for ideas. There are other types of opportunities out there. I mentioned grant funding, from other organizations, or there are some prizes that that are interested in receiving bright ideas, but we are a prize that we really want to see, have you taken your concept to the field, to a market, to investors, If you're an academic group, it's not just about a research paper, but it's about putting that research into practice in some way. Is there a prototype? Do you have a line of sight to making money on your idea if you're a startup, or if you're a nonprofit? Have you already worked on this with communities? We want to see those active projects that are already making a difference in the world. So in that sense, it's very about the now. What are you doing now? It's not necessarily about the future ideas, although those may be very bright, and maybe you want to consider applying in future years for this if we're able to keep running the prize in future years. This is the first year, so we're very excited about this test run. And then also our other prize, the Keeling Curve Prize, which runs every year. I will also say a bit about the types of applicants we get. We get this question a lot. Is it for-profit startups? Is it for nonprofits? Can governments apply? We've had applications from really across the spectrum. We want to know who are those people and projects that are really thinking about this issue in creative ways. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur inside of a company trying to shift something about the way the world works from, sitting inside a company, or if you're a startup founder who is developing a new exciting solution that could even make some money, or if you're a nonprofit project manager who's worked for a long time on an exciting solution that's getting traction, but that doesn't make money in this case, but it has some path to sustainability. Or you're a local government, right? That's transformed something about the way you do things, maybe the way you do waste management, or the way your food system works in your local area, and you're excited to apply with that. So the idea is that we're reaching people with a lot of different vantage points, trying to work on solutions here. We also, a tip, do fill out all the questions meaningfully and calculate your emissions impact. This is one of the things that will really set applications back. In some categories, it may be harder than others. Social and cultural pathways. It's challenging to think about emissions impact in that category, right? But there are ways to estimate emissions impact, or to think creatively about how do we consider our actual impact on emissions, even though our solution might be one step removed from actually, avoiding molecules going out into the atmosphere. You can see a lot more about this on the eligibility and FAQ on our website. And of course, you can always reach out to prizes@climatecurve.org with any questions. So with that, I'm going to just transition us to our next phase of the webinar, which is talking to Jackie a bit more about Climate Curve and about this prize. And then please do put your questions in the chat, and we'll circle back at the end of the info session to answer some of those. So let's see. Okay. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Ruth. How are you?
Good. Have you had a chance to get your coffee or tea?
Just a little juice. That's what I
Okay.
have this morning.
Okay, great. Jackie's joining us from Aspen, Colorado. And I wanted to start out with some questions for you about Climate Curve in general. So what is the Climate Curve? I didn't really give much of an introduction to the organization in the PowerPoint. So if you can tell us a little bit about Climate Curve, and why do you feel this organization is needed in the world right now?
So about 10 years ago, I embarked on I finished a master's in energy policy and climate science. And it just occurred to me that we have solutions all over the world that are fantastic and need to actually scale and be out there in the world, so people who are doing business as usual can understand that there are better options that will get us to a more sustainable planet. And so I started this organization 9 years ago with that intent of focusing on reducing, removing, and replacing greenhouse gases and trying to demonstrate to people how there's such a grand opportunity in this like valley of abundance beyond fossil fuels, and that there needs to be more awareness on how to get there. And that's kind of the foundation for why I started this organization. And how it's grown from there is the Keeling Curve Prize, which was our first signature prize 9 years ago, um, was about reducing, removing, and replacing greenhouse gases in 5 categories with 2 winners in each category. And the categories that we've landed on over the last few years have been carbon sinks, which can be both low tech and high tech, and anything in between. Energy, which are all sorts of energy that use basically green electrons. Finance, which is also incredibly important in both areas of methane and all greenhouse gases. We really need to get more money to flow to support these solutions. Social and cultural pathways, which you already described as like a way to change our behavior from business as usual, and transport and mobility. So those are all the categories for the Keeling Curve Prize. We found those to be pretty successful. They go kind of across the spectrum of what's available for how we do things in the world. It really shows that we need systems change in all these areas. And so then through doing the Keeling Curve Prize, as we were getting hundreds of solutions around the world, COVID happened and we designed the Constellations program, which is our internship fellowship. And that has been really instrumental in supporting the winners and finalists, showing that these projects and programs could be catapulted into success, not just catalyst, but catapulted. And we've seen such great success in this area. We've given out $2.75 million to date, and that's turned into over $3 billion in add-on funding. So it's really exciting to see the success stories, to see how we are making a difference throughout the world.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And I should mention that Keeling Curve Prize, that other prize that Climate Curve runs, does open applications annually in November. So it has a bit of a different application cycle, but you can learn more about that prize as well on our website. Um, and why start the Climate Curve Prize methane? Why now?
So it became pretty apparent a few years ago that methane was becoming a really, really noticeable and serious problem in the heat trapping space. As you mentioned, Ruth, methane is 80 times more potent at trapping heat. And so a couple advisors and people that I knew were just like, we really need to focus on this kind of what they call an emergency brake in the climate space. I almost see this as like an emergency parachute to slow down our increasingly accelerated emissions problem. And several really amazing experts in this space have kind of consulted with me on this idea of the methane prize. So a couple years ago, I started talking to the Global Methane Hub and others about like where could we find funding for this prize. And then just about a year ago, the Global Methane Hub came to us and said, "All right, we're ready to make this happen." And they underwrote the program, and we've put together all the pieces to make it happen. And we feel like this is a really important time to do this methane prize because it really is something that can slow down it's a weird way to say it, but slow down the acceleration of heat trapping gases in our atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit about how this prize got started. Can you talk more about that? And also, who do you hope this prize will reach? And, based on also drawing on the experience of the Keeling Curve Prize and what you've been able to reach, who you've been able to reach with that prize.
The other thing that's important about methane is it's not just a greenhouse gas that's important. It's also a pollutant. It creates tropospheric pollution. And that really affects people on the ground and people in areas that are already being seriously impacted by heat. And now they're also being impacted by local pollutants as well, like tropospheric ozone. And this is something that makes our earth just healthier. It makes our world a better place. And we are seeing in the oil and gas sector that it is financially advantageous for them to retrieve the methane that they're already leaking. And there's some pressure financially for that to happen, but we weren't seeing as much of this kind of uh, social and financial pressure for the food and waste systems to actually do something about what they can when it comes to the methane that's escaping and how that's affecting people everywhere around the world. So this was something that was kind of really innovative as well as just forward visionary thinking. And I think that that's why I love this idea of this prize. It really does speak to, the health and humanity that we want to see in a more sustainable, livable world. So I know that's kind of big picture, but I think that this visionary idea of how we envision a place where the world is healthier is what's driving my motivation to do this prize.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really exciting. I would say also, having worked on the Climate Curve Prize methane, it was exciting to take some of um, the experience and the lessons learned from working with the Keeling Curve Prize, because we both worked on that, and translate those into the running of the Methane Prize. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how has running the Keeling Curve Prize for many years had an impact and shaped the development of this new prize and the running of it. Yeah.
you know, the Keeling Curve Prize, obviously, we have kind of honed in on the framework and the structure of the Keeling Curve Prize so that it actually has a really good system on how we do the application, how we've actually put the application online, how we get the word out about the prize. And all these lessons learned over the last 9 years have translated into how we could put together the methane prize in a very similar framework that is effective and efficient on our end. And then how we kind of emphasize the winners, the finalists, how we've created the conduit database, which has all the applications that have opted in into the database. This also leads to just an overall success story. So I see the 9 years of doing the Keeling Curve Prize as being an incredible framework for how we can move forward with activating other prizes in other sectors, methane being our first one. And I think that one of the things I love the most about the process that we do is when the applications come in, and I tend to try and read at least a percentage of the top scoring applications that the analysts have already scored. And I just find such inspiration and excitement in the work that's being done and the passion, intelligence, and humanity in the people out there that are working in this space.
Yeah, great. And you mentioned a bit that you participate in some ways. You have access to the applications that come through, and we have a rigorous firewall where you don't really get the chance to talk to applicants that often during the process. And so I'm curious if you have any general advice for applicants around the world as they go into this process, given that you don't really interact with specific applicants during the application cycle.
Yeah, I think that the general advice that I would give is to get your application in, as timely as possible. As Ruth already said, I mean, it is a first year prize. We don't think we'll be flooded right away, but we could be. So go ahead, get your applications in as soon as possible. Make sure you do really think about, how am I impacting greenhouse gases? And we love to see how you're also impacting other avenues of maybe the waste systems. Like how can your solution be something that could help us identify where critical minerals or rare earths are within a landfill? This is something that's kind of a co-benefit. So we do look at those kind of co-benefits. We look at scalability. Is this scalable? Is there a pathway to this being a solution that can actually really make a difference and matter? And we look at the efficacy. Is it a very effective solution? And we really do try and look at like how you think about your greenhouse gas impact, and in this particular situation, your methane impact. So those are the things that, I try and tell people in the general sense. And once the applications are in and we have the decisions made for the finalists and the folders are in the hands of the winners, this is when I can talk to people, talk to CEOs, talk to the executive directors of the organizations, and we really bring them into like kind of our climate curve family. We also have like a celebration in New York during New York Climate Week where we invite winners and finalists. And we really believe in this as a movement building organization that connects with others. And that's something that I find has been really successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important that you hit on that idea of local initiatives and showing scalability. We do, if you look at our website and you look at the Keeling Curve Prize and who we've awarded in the past, there are some local initiatives in there. But I'd say, if something is a one off or local initiative, being able to show that scalability, that potential for impact beyond, one community or one specific situation is very important. So it's important to mention that as well. So last question before we open it up for any Q&A is just, what's next for Climate Curve? You have the Keeling Curve Prize. Now we have the Climate Curve Prize, Methane. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the organization, where it is now, and what your hopes for the future might be?
Well, you talked a little bit about the timeline. The Keeling Curve Prize is in the analyst phase right now. We are going to be announcing the finalists for that prize sometime in later April, right around Earth Day. The location is to be decided. And we are going to be announcing the winners for that prize in Aspen at an event on July 2nd, where we're going to be announcing the finalists of this prize at that same event. And then in New York, we have our laureate celebration during New York Climate Week. But as far as like sort of the bigger picture, once winners and finalists are selected for both these prizes, they can become a part of the Constellation's internship program and get support from very bright young people around the world that are trying to get these career pathways started. We also have the Conduit, which is our database, and we are looking to actually valorize the database in a way where it can be a source of truth for investors, philanthropists, and others. So we're looking at ways to kind of create some type of a portfolio fund with the Conduit so that more money can actually flow into the space and more opportunity and investment can be seen through the success of climate solutions. And then we're also looking to see what future prizes could be an offering for Climate Curve. We've talked to others about other specific sector prizes, and we're looking to see what might be next. We're not sure what that'll be yet, but we do have ideas, and we've had relationships and partnerships with others that are looking to see if we can find the right kind of funding to support other types of prizes as well. Because ultimately, we're looking at a huge systems change, and we need to get people to understand that the opportunities for this systems change are everywhere. And for us to get to the world where we're looking behind us for what fossil fuels, where that brought us, we need to actually really enhance all kinds of sectors throughout the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love the idea of enhancing and moving to a bright new future. We need that urgency. And so I feel like at Climate Curve, we really try to amp up the urgency, the creativity, the excitement with which we head towards.
Can I say one
For
more
these
thing too,
solutions.
Ruth,
Yeah.
about our Global Prize Network? We've actually created something called the Global Prize Network with other prizes, and we've combined efforts with X Prize, Earthshot Prize, and a bunch of other kind of climate-related or environmental type prizes throughout the world. And this network is starting to grow, and we're now supporting each other on how to not only nominate for other prizes and get the word out about our other prizes and our network, but we're also trying to figure out how are ways we can collaborate on things like a collective database and other ways to really encourage and enhance the move beyond where we are into a future that is actually cleaner and more sustainable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say one of the things I love about working at an organization that works on prizes is how hopeful the work is, how hopeful and exciting. And so we're really excited to see what comes in with this brand new prize. And the application period, the window isn't super long. You know, it launched on Monday of this week, February 23rd, April 17th. It'll close maybe even before if we get 500 applications. So please, please do get your applications in. Now I'm going to turn it over to any Q&A. This is your chance to put questions in the chat. I see our colleague Heather's already put a request in there. So thank you to her for working her magic behind the scenes. Please do submit your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get some of those answered now. Let's see. We'll give you a couple of minutes to think about them. And if there aren't any, I hope that means our FAQ section and our eligibility section on our website is pretty complete. You do always have the opportunity to write prizes at climatecurve.org with any questions. We want to be here for you as you prepare your application. Applications can be submitted to the portal that's on our website, and you'll see a way to get a login and submit an application there. Okay, I see. Will orgs that show how they will use the 25K in a compelling way be scored higher? How much is financial need considered? I don't know, Jackie, do you want to take that one, or I can speak a bit to that if you can.
Yeah, sure. I'll start taking that. So it goes both ways. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes for organizations, the 25K is just really meaningful and they really, can utilize that in a way that will take them over this valley of death, which is, that valley of I need to get this money to get across that bridge. And we definitely look at that and be like, okay, that matters. But then there's other organizations where it is more the prestige of winning the prize that matters. We actually weigh both of those things. And we sometimes, as I said, we have two winners in each category. Sometimes we pick both of those spectrums, because we do want to show this as a full systems change. So if that is your story, then of course, put that narrative in there because it does matter in a lot of ways to see, how we can actually meaningfully with that $25,000 help. But we also recognize too that this prize is it's a lot about the prestige of winning it, and it becomes a door opener for all these other opportunities. And that's really important to us because it isn't in an organization, it isn't a good idea to have a bunch of funding come in and then have a funding cliff that you're going to fall off of when that funding runs out. And this prize is actually designed to not have that kind of funding cliff. It's actually designed to be that door opener for the opportunities to take your organization from where you are to the whole next phase. And I think that that's really a success story that we can brag about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll also add that you'll actually see both of the components that Jackie mentions in the prize application itself. So you'll see two different questions. One question that asks about what winning the funding associated with the prize, how that would impact your organization, and one question that asks about how winning the prize will assist, I believe, in your scalability and your impact. And so do pay attention to the distinction between those questions because they are similarly worded, but they are slightly different in terms of those two different aspects of winning the prize that Jackie mentioned. I see we have another question here. Hi, how will the prize categories be allocated for the 8 finalists? It's actually 8 winners. We have 16 finalists. Will it be 2 winners from each category? What if the solution fits into 2 categories? And is there any requirement of a company's past minimum turnover? So I'll just take some of those questions. On the second part, there's no specific requirement of a company's past minimum turnover. We do, and you'll see more about this on the website. We do want solutions, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit solutions, that show proof of concept, proof of action, proof of impact in the space. So if for you that metric is having turnover, et cetera, then that's great. Some others quantify it in terms of people reached or prototypes launched or getting to certain rounds, right, of funding. Or really, I mean, the bottom line for us is the emissions impact as well. You know, how you show that, how you think about that, the current impact, the impact to date, the impact on methane emissions, but also on CO2 emissions as a whole, because as we know, some concepts can work to improve the methane emissions impact, but maybe they have another impact, negative impact on energy use or something else related to CO2. So that is really important for us, showing that impact. And even like I mentioned, some categories may have a more direct impact than others or a more straightforward way of calculating that. But for all solutions that apply, we want to see that effort in quantifying that or estimating that. Um, then there's the question about the categories and what if the solution fits into two categories? There's a way in the application to check a primary category and also check other categories that your solution might apply to. And there's a way on the website to look at all that detailed text that I presented, which was probably too small to read for some folks. You can find that on the website. And so
Let
you
me
can
let me add to
absolutely put,
that, Ruth.
yeah,
Let me add to
yeah,
that too. That I love that question about what if we fit in two categories. We do see a lot of projects that do fit into two categories. And during the analysis process, sometimes if we think that the secondary category is something that they'll actually score stronger, and we move them into that other category, and we've seen winners actually win in a different category than they put as their primary category. So put your primary category that you think, your secondary category or secondary categories, because can be more than one. And if we see an advantage on our side, we'll help that application move up into, the finalist kind of circle. So we definitely take that into consideration, and we actually, love the idea of showing how you can be in two different categories.
yeah. Yeah, that's great to mention. I think also I would give you a little bit of a warning of not just clicking all the
Yeah.
category, all the above, because we do also look at that in terms of how how knowledgeable is this person about like where their solution fits into the grand scheme of things. But you can find a lot more information on our website, and if you the rest of your application, you know, backs up in the text parts, backs up that selection of that category, and it shows a logical connection that our teams can really understand, then it makes sense to have multiple categories selected. I should also mention we have the four prize categories for the methane, the climate curve prize methane. And then we also have a way to select whether it's an agriculture or a waste related solution. And I should say that we fully expect to receive some solutions that address, both. Maybe it's food waste, but it's also something connected to agriculture. So there's also a way to select one or both of those as well. Um, and then in terms of how we allocate the prize, that this is the first year that we're running this, so we're still looking at, the categories, the applicants we get across the different categories, and that idea of how the final eight winners will be selected. That's still very much in the hands of our review team. So I'm not sure we can necessarily give you a specific quantification yet. But for the Keeling Curve Prize, I can tell you that we do have two winners in each category. Across there, it's five categories, right? And 10 winners. So that's how we've done it in the past with the Keeling Curve Prize. Let's see. Any other questions? These are great. Thank you. And I should mention we're recording this, so these questions will also help applicants in the future that might be looking at our website and materials for applying. Let's see. Okay, last chance. No. Um, Great. Okay. Well, it's been really fun being a part of Delhi Climate Innovation Week. I think there's one more day after this. We're on the evening of the 26th over there in Delhi. So for those of you tuning in from that week, I hope you have a great experience. For those of you who found us through social media and some of our blasts, you can find out a lot more information there. We tend to be very active on social media with updates about, for example, the release of the finalist announcements for our prizes and things like that, other events we host through the year. And do keep in mind that date I mentioned, April 17th, and that we cap the application at 500 eligible applications. I think in the long run, it's also very hopeful for those applying for the prize, especially in a year when we know a lot of opportunities just have many, many, many applicants. So you sort of know the max number you're competing against in this opportunity. Um, and more, than just a focus on the winners, like Jackie said and emphasized throughout, with the conduit idea, that community that you can see more about on our website, the Constellations Fellowship, our collection of prizes now with the Keeling Curve Prize and the Climate Curve Prize Methane. We really want to build a community and an ecosystem of action. And every year that I've participated in the Keeling Curve Prize, and I fully expect this will be the same with the Climate Curve Prize Methane, I am just incredibly, incredibly inspired by the applications that come to our doorstep. So, as Jackie put in the chat, thank you for your interest in this issue and reducing methane. And Jackie, I'll just pass it off to you in case you have any final words to close us out.
Have a great time at Delhi Climate Innovation Week, and we really appreciate you joining us today, and we really appreciate the work you're doing in the space. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, looking forward to staying in touch. Have a great rest of the week. Bye, everybody.